Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. In the history of the world, you've never seen an Irishman and a Texan who doesn't drink in the same room together. So, guys, we have no idea what's going to go on here, but we have Mr. Lou in the house. How are you doing, sir?
Very well. Thank you, Austin. Thank you. Good to be here from Tipperary.
Yeah, it's great to be, Adam, man, he's trying to beat me in connecting people and I'm not okay with it. So I need to make some connections today. But, in true fashion, you were going to tell me some stuff about yourself. And I was like, no, let's save it for the podcast. So, I'll let you tell your story and kind of start where you want to, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Okay, I'm Louis O'Connor. Coming to you from Tipperary in Ireland. Recently returned to Ireland after 20 years in Latin America. I was in Panamá in Central America.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was in Germany for 10 years. So, I've been living and traveling around the world. My wife is born in Mexico. 2 kids are born in Panama. But I came back here now to start this business, which I think is what we're going to talk about too. What
business is that, sir?
Okay, so it's rare earth metals.
Okay.
I'll give you I know a term, I picked up a term in America you guys use, which is the elevator pitch, right? We don't have elevators here, or well, we do, but we call them lifts.
The lifts. Yeah, the lift pitch doesn't roll off the tongue. Yeah.
Exactly. So the lift pitch is owning rare earths is exactly the same paradigm as owning gold or silver.
Okay.
Except you own an industry grade sort of high quality rare earth metal.
Okay.
That you can store just like you would gold and silver, and resell and liquidate them as well.
Very interesting. Life is really interesting. So we're traveling the country in an RV, and I was staying with one of my friends in Boston, outside of Boston, and her dad, who's been in the financial business for like 40 plus years, literally worked for like Netscape back in the day. We were talking about life and business, and he busted out his coins and his gold and everything. And like, us young whippersnappers, we're only in crypto and real estate and everything. So this is going to be like as much as a learning experience it is for me. So is this what you've always done? Did you do something before? And then what got you kind of in this realm?
Yeah, good question. Actually, Austin, would you believe I left Dublin at 19 years of age? It was a geographic move. You might be familiar with that terminology.
Yeah.
Went to Germany, was sleeping under underground car parks, but I actually ended up washing cars on Ramstein Air Base, which was is a US Air Force base still. This is back in the late 80s. And I ended up selling cars with the military. Then after about 2 years, I ended up being a sales manager for Germany, Italy, and that's eventually how I came to Panama. And I've been in Panama the last 20 years, working with a lot of North Americans in real estate. As you probably know, a lot of snowbirds, people who live in the upper northeast, northwest of America, Canada, if they're fortunate enough to have made some money and are considering retirement, they're buying and moving to Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Belize, and now Colombia is coming online now that they've ended their 50-year civil war. So I've been working with North Americans most of my life, even though I never lived in America. Oh, and I should add, I didn't tell you, the first trip I ever made to America was to Texas.
What city?
Lubbock.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, that's not Texas. So I digress, but it is Texas. But my brother went to school there. I'm very familiar with Lubbock, and we had some Airbnbs there. But dude, so you met a girl, right? I
met a girl from Lubbock in Heidelberg in Germany, and we fell in love. And I went out to meet the family and went to see.
There's nothing out there. There's nothing out there.
I'm always embarrassed to say it, but you know what I wanted to see when I got to Texas was South Fork.
You get to Lubbock and it's like, oh my God, there's just fields out here. And then you go to the hill country and there's, rivers and lakes and hills and mountains. And, I've spent most of my life trying to leave it, but it never leaves me.
Buddy Holly's from Lubbock, and I was into Buddy Holly as a kid, you know. But anyway, to get back to your question, so I was sort of working a little bit in the offshore space, and that's how I came across the metals. Up till quite recently, private investors could not buy them and own them sort of safely and securely, because these metals, the only end buyer for them are industry buyers. There's no point in you or me or anybody having, say, for example, there's 12 rare earth elements in an iPhone. You couldn't do that, swipe your phone without gallium. Gallium is one of the metals. So there's no point in me or you having, $100,000 worth of gallium in our safe or in the back garden somewhere. So you've got to be aligned with an industry buyer, and that's what it is. I've partnered with a German company, with the largest metals trader in Europe. They've been in business for 30 years, and they'll sell you the metals. You store them, usually in a chain of custody location, with them as well in a vault in Frankfurt, and then they liquidate them. They're very profitable. Obviously, that's why what a lot of people are surprised is that if you bought rare earth elements 5 years ago and we're sitting on them still today, they have outperformed the S&P 100, or sorry, the FTSE 100, the S&P 500, and gold and silver. So I suppose the important thing to mention is they're profitable to own.
I think what's interesting as I continue to build more businesses and as I continue to talk to so many people, in about 5 days, I just did the math. We're coming up on our 2 years anniversary of the podcast. Between the episodes I've been on and 2 podcasts I have, we're talking about, north of 600 to 500 episodes in 2 years. I've talked to a lot of people, and one of the things that interests me is now I'm having a conversation of things that I didn't even know either. And so it's just, I think that a lot of people, and as I get older, I'm going away from this. A lot of people like the sex and the sizzle. I ain't in that business anymore. I'm in the business of the business that's never going to go away. And so what we're looking about is businesses that are never going to go away, like the service business, the title business, like the things that are always going to be there. And in my opinion, if I'm speaking out of turn, this seems like an avenue that's not going to go away.
No. Well, you're on the money there, Austin. Just a quick couple of points. One, these rare earths are in all modern technology, everything, right? But also they're critically needed in electric mobility. So electric batteries, solar power, wind power. You could say they're nearly the technologies of the future because they're finding more and more uses. Some of them are oxide, so they're like a powdered form. Some of them are highly magnetic, where they can store and transfer energy. So again, for electric car batteries and solar power. But what a lot of people don't know, and if they do a little bit of digging, what they'll find out is you don't even have to look too far, but you'll be sort of surprised to learn. One, if you go back to the middle 40 years ago to 1985, at that time, both the US and China had a sort of they shared about 70% of the production of these metals. China had 37%, the US had 35%, or vice versa, something like that, right? Then 40 years later, what will blow you away is that the US now has only one production facility of rare earths. So China now produces more than 80% of the world's rare earths. They have sort of a near monopoly on the market. And that's the crux, if you will, for the investor, is soaring demand, sort of limited availability. Like, for example, on average, the metals went up about 35% last year. So if you'd invested 100 grand a year ago, you'd be up to 135. Now, why did that happen? Because China doubled their production of electric cars domestically. So they restricted the quotas. They didn't allow as much metals to go overseas as before. And then the prices went up,
So does one person, if I was just me and I'm like, man, I'm intrigued by this, you're not per se going to go out and like hunt this down yourself. You're going to work with somebody like you that's already in the business. And is this something that, like, as an investor, I could diversify in my portfolio? Is there like a way to like put money with you to like ramp up your business? Like, how does that work when you're talking about investing?
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, we seek private investors, and you buy. Let's say, just as an example, if you bought $100,000 worth, I mean, we'd recommend you diversify within that itself. I mean, you're sort of diversifying out of maybe precious metals into rare earths, but we'd recommend about 9 metals, all the metals that are needed for modern technology, sustainable, greener energy, probably military applications. And then you actually buy the metals, you physically own them just like you would own, it's just like if you wanted to store gold in Switzerland or, Australia, Singapore, the exact same paradigm as that. You own them, you have your certificate of ownership, you have your chain of custody authentication, you have your analysis reports, and then you keep them. And, you get updated weekly on the prices, and you can keep them for as little or as long as you want. I mean, you own them. So, yeah, you physically own them just like you would. That looks like a fridge or a safe there, not a safe, but let's say it's a safe there beside you. You could have them in your safe at home, but it's better to have them in what we call the chain of custody for easy and quick liquidation. Like, let's say you said, Louis, I want to invest, but I don't want to store them in Switzerland, or I don't want to store them in Frankfurt. I want to keep them here in Texas. Texas is the safest place in the world, right? Then you could ship them there, but the problem is you're sort of adding expenses to your investment, and then you'd have to ship them back, and stuff like that. So look, it's a little bit, as I said, it's the same paradigm as precious metals, but there's a couple of minor differences just to keep it safe and secure.
So why don't you think that more people don't know about this, or do you think they're just not privy to this avenue?
Great question. Actually, that's it. So you're buying the metals from a company called Tradium GmbH in Frankfurt in Germany, who are 30 years in the business. Primarily, that's what they do. They buy and sell metals. However, only 12 years ago, they opened up a side business. That's a bit of a small word for it now, but let's call it a side business, where they bought what was an underground bunker in World War II, and they converted it to a bank level secure vault, insurance, bonded, tax-free, armed security. So for the last 12 years, since 2010, they've been offering this opportunity mostly in Germany, Austria, Switzerland. I mean, there's 90 million people in Germany alone. So sort of was enough business there, if you will. So it wasn't that it was they were excluding, other countries. They just literally have done no marketing in English, or they haven't targeted actively Ireland or the UK or the US. But 3 years ago, they finished completing their storage capacity is 3 times what it was. And for the first time, they've brought in international partners, and I'm their partner for Ireland, UK, and North America. So it's only in the last 6 months I've been doing marketing in English, and that's how, I know Adam actually from Liberland, but that's how now word is starting to get around. So people in the US would not have heard of it because they would have had to dig really, really hard to find it,
I love it. This is why business is so intriguing to me, because you never know what's coming around the corner. That being said, if you don't mind, because it's more of a selfish line of questioning, I've spent a lot of time in Costa Rica. I've got multiple friends in Medellin right now who are running their businesses from Medellin, because it's on the same time zone as America, and they love it. Mm-hmm. When you spent time in the international real estate space in Panama and Central America, I have a big issue with what people see on TV and what's actually going on there. I think they're like a little jaded. Like, for me, I just got back from Costa Rica. Costa Rica was not that cheaper than being in the States. Like, it's, no. And so we've entered a place where it can be done, but it needs to be done the right way. What do you think is the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs or business people, when they're looking to get that second home in the Central America or something, what's the biggest mistake you think they're making?
Well, I suppose don't believe the hype. Go see for yourself. And as you know, the world is always changing. And I went to Panama in 2005. Well, back to Panama. I had been there in the 90s. When I went in 2005, Panama was very inexpensive, and it was just a great time and a great place to be. You could buy it. I did, in fact, bought an apartment, a 3-bed apartment for $90,000. But those days are gone. And it's what I find. Something I'm learning myself later in life, Austin, as well, is there's usually, they say like this sort of perfect storm. There's always sort of more than one dynamic that changes things. It's not just one thing. Now, Panama is not the great deal it was 15 years ago for expats, right? Why is that? Well, one, you just mentioned Colombia. Nobody was going to Colombia 15 years ago because, there were, 50-year civil war. Now people are, and Colombia is way, way less expensive than Panama, arguably has sort of a better, vibrant culture. Colombian women, I'm sure you have some women in the audience too, but Colombian men and women, let's say, very attractive, fun-loving. But yeah, I think boots on the ground. You have to get there yourself. And, we tend to sort of not respond, but the first wave of sort of contact is, to me is go a bit deeper, get with a local. But out of all of those countries, say from Mexico now down to, say, Colombia, Ecuador, I'd say Colombia is the best bet right now for a North American because of its close proximity to the US. Very, very inexpensive. Great food, great culture. However, I'd also say you'd want to be very, very careful there doing business, because Latin Americans do business differently than North Americans or Europeans,
1,000%. I couldn't. And so you've spent a lot of time in business and a lot of business sector. You've dealt with a lot of North American entrepreneurs. You lived in Europe and everything. I'm just merely asking, what have you learned over your years in business about creating a proper business, but also, handling different personalities, different, kind of like different motives, different cultures? Like what have you learned that served you well over your years in business?
Yeah. I've learned that, business is business. And I think it's very unusual to find, even myself, what I've learned about myself is just about everything I do is tainted with my own selfishness and self-preservation. Now, I didn't know that for a long time. It was very well disguised, but I know that's true about me. And I think it's true about just about everybody, unless you meet that very rare enlightened person, right? The Dalai Lama or, So I think my approach is, it's difficult, in terms of starting a new business, like in Panama or Colombia. I would venture a guess that you mentioned some friends on there. I would say most of them,
they're all running businesses in the States.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. And that's how they're probably doing so well there, I'd be super, super careful and cautious about going into business with a foreigner in any way, because, you don't, like, I'm Irish, you're Texan. I mean, if you came to Ireland to say start a business here, you're so out of your normal environment that you don't know, up from down, right from wrong, left from right. You really don't, even though we're speaking the same language, and you're just relying completely on the integrity of meeting somebody who really, really, be on the level with you and straight up. So, yeah, I think, I just think it's very, very challenging, and you have to sort of, I suppose, know yourself, most of all, what you're getting into.
Yeah, there's a guy that I follow that I really respect that said, he said, in business, if you can understand that everybody's going to default to their own self-interest, he's like, you'll save yourself a lot of problems.
You said it. That's exactly what I hope. That's what I was trying to say. You said it.
Yeah. And I think ultimately that's, and people hear me say that and they're like, oh man, like that's really like off-putting. And I'm like, no, it's just that I've been in this space long enough that not everybody, but a lot of people that I look up to, or used to look up to back in the day, they're not good people when you dig down deeper. And I think that, unfortunately, the farther you get and the higher you get, I'll be honest with you, because I'm a giving person, and I'm like, I have no ulterior motives. Like, a lot of people look at me sideways when I'm offering help to them, because they're like, what's his angle? Yeah. And like, it's like, so I know how rare it is, right? Yeah. And so we have to make sure that we're, and this is the way we operate. What are your values? What do you really care about? What's the deeper meaning here? Let's dig a little deeper. Let's find some stuff up. Yeah. And then kind of going from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think, what you said there as well, Austin, a little bit of a deeper way is don't sort of going into that with that frame of mind is, like Mike Tyson said about, I think when somebody was going in the ring against him, they'd say, well, he's going to knock you out and he's going to do this. And he'd say, well, everybody has a plan until they get hit, Mm-hmm. Likewise, everybody has a plan while things are going well and while the sun is out and the sun is shining. You'll really only see another side when the pressure comes on. So my suggestion, as you said, if for people who maybe are, buying a home or any sort of business in, outside of the US, when they're outside their environment, is don't give away your position of strength, even if you trust that person or it appears that things are going well, maintain your position of strength. Do not give anybody a possible advantage over you if things go wrong further down the line. Do you know what I mean?
Love it. I love it. So if anybody wanted to find out more about, the space that you're in, is there a book? Is there a podcast? Is there a YouTube channel? Or is it kind of, can you find that information? They need to reach out to you.
They'd come to our website, which is www.strategicmetalsinvest.com mm-hmm. is the best thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was listening to a guy I respect who owns a bunch of business, who was interviewing a stock guy, and he was saying that they've never seen a time like this for commodity, mm-hmm. Aluminum, metals, and people. I don't think people are aware enough to understand that everything affects everything. Like, hey, gas is expensive. Well, guess what? The planes for the gas is going to be expensive. So your plane ticket's going to go up. Hey, aluminum is very expensive. Your car's going to go up. Yeah. Like they don't, like, I have friends that work for UT and they manage $50 billion. Like, it wasn't until I had conversations with them when they're buying forest, like it's the tree before the tree gets to the house. And that's when I kind of like, okay, you got to think a little deeper and you got to kind of connect the dots. Yeah. And so if that's the trend, then the trend is, like you're saying, it's outperformed this, it's outperformed that. And I think it's only going to continue to go that way as people look to diversify, and other markets are not as stable. And then that's kind of the game behind the game that really takes the thinking to the next level.
Yeah, well, exactly. What you're doing with rare earths as well is you're investing a bit further back along the value stream. So, if you can see, the explosion of smartphones or electric vehicles, right? How can I invest in electric? Well, you can invest in the mine, or you can invest in Tesla, but you can also invest in the raw materials that are needed for those products. And that's basically what this is. Again, one of the big things about it, which people just don't know, is that how much of a monopoly China has on rare earths. Over 87% of the refining is done in China. They monopolize the market, and that's, again, as you said as well, if China restricts quotas, you'll probably see the price of your iPhone go up,
Mm-hmm. Well, every day I wake up and I ask myself, what am I going to learn new today? And today I learned about rare metals, and I'm better for it. And now I have an Irish friend. So when I take my dream trip to go play all the golf courses and drive around, now I have a friend. So I'm super excited. if people want to find out more about you, what your company's doing, you already gave the website, but is there any way for them to contact you or reach out?
Yeah, probably my email is the handiest. It's Louis, Louis, at strategicmetalsinvest.com.
I love it. Guys, if you got some value from this episode or you enjoyed it, send it to a friend. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.